Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I'm Doshon Farad. Welcome to New SIREN, bringing you the latest in news as well as current events. We're looking very forward to taking your calls later in the show. In the meantime, we want to get to just to let you know how we do it. We always go over the news of the day. We read from you articles from various sources that we've gathered, as well as sources that have been gathered for us. And we'll feature videos as any other news show. New Siren is not going to necessarily be the old-fashioned Walter Cronkite type, but we're more the down-to-earth type. We're not going to be too stiff. We promise to be in a relaxed conversational mode. But please feel free to send us your comments as the show progresses. But we're going to begin with our rundown. And of course, just to let you know, for those of you who may not be aware, we lost a giant last night. It wasn't announced until this morning. Civil rights giant attorney Vernon Jordan died at age 85, according to a statement from his daughter. He died Monday evening. The cause of death has not been determined yet or has not been revealed, but he passed away last evening, surrounded by his loved ones. This according to his daughter, Vicky Jordan. And already tweets from everywhere pouring in, including from former President Bill Clinton, who he was an advisor to. Former President Clinton said, "Vernon Jordan was a wonderful friend to Hillary, Chelsea, and me in good times and bad. We worked and played, laughed and cried, and even won and lost together. We loved him very much." Jordan was born in Atlanta and graduated from Howard University School of Law. He became deeply involved in the civil rights movement during the 1960s. As you know, that was a very turbulent time for America, and there were many people, many African Americans and many white Americans and others that took part in many of the social justice movements and activities at that time. Vernon was no different. He was inspired as a college student, as a matter of fact, actually as a law student, if you would. He held various leadership roles in the NAACP. He worked for the United Negro College Fund, and he also was the president of the National Urban League from 1971 to 1981. And of course, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, they put out statements, and even Monica Lewinsky actually put out statements as well. For those of you who may not remember, during the whole Monica Lewinsky-Bill Clinton crisis in 1999, Jordan, people were actually trying to get at Jordan, saying that he knew what was going on. But after Monica had left the White House, he actually helped her try to find work. And during the trial, it wasn't mentioned that his name was never mentioned in regards to having anything to do with a cover-up regarding Clinton's affair. And Monica Lewinsky herself tweeted today that maybe she should say anything, but she did say that once you met Vernon Jordan, you wouldn't forget him. Now, in Washington, D.C., Mr. Jordan's political experience, he had a knack for connecting with a lot of famous people and a lot of big shots. That was one of his gifts as a brilliant attorney. This gift actually led him to form a close relationship, of course, with former President Bill Clinton. So he was a Clinton advisor during the time that President Clinton was in the White House. His relationship with President Clinton was so close, there was a joke. I don't want to say a joke, but it was like a funny piece of information. Everyone in D.C., anyone who was a D.C. insider said that every time that Mr. Jordan had to call Clinton, he would go straight through. He wouldn't really have to go through the operator like that. So he was that tight with him. But of course, you have people from all over sending in their condolences. So far, that's just about it. This is still a developing story. But he held many posts. He actually had did the commencement addresses for several campuses, including his own, a few times, Howard University School of Law. Moving on, actually to a tragic story today, NBC News is reporting that at least 15 people were killed and about a dozen others were taken to hospitals after a crash in Southern California today. The crash occurred in Imperial, California, just north of the Mexican border. This vehicle was filled with 27 passengers and it hit a semi-truck full of gravel. And this is according to Judy Cruz. She's the director of the emergency department of El Centro Regional Medical Center. And she said this at a press conference today. At least 14 people were pronounced dead on the scene, according to the hospital. 3 others were flown out from the scene. 7 patients were transported to El Centro Regional Medical Center. And unfortunately, one of those has died since arrival, but 2 patients were transferred to Pioneers Hospital. The Imperial County Sheriff's Office is investigating. This is still a breaking story, as it only happened. This happened not even 6 hours ago. So details are still running in, and we actually had some footage from that. I believe we played the footage. Well, New York Governor Mario Cuomo seems to be getting deeper and deeper in hot water. Third woman today accused him of unwanted advances, this time in 2019. Now, this is according to the New York Times. This is reported today. The woman, Anna Ruch, had told the Times that the governor approached her during a crowded wedding. It was a wedding reception in New York in 2019. Ms. Ruch told the paper she thanked Cuomo for a toast that he gave to newlyweds, but in response, she says he put his hand on her bare lower back, which according to the paper was exposed. She was wearing an open black dress. And so, many women oftentimes complain about men trying to touch that area, but it's somewhat difficult. Of course, if a man is trying to talk, and things happen sometimes. When Ruch removed his hand, of course, she said that Cuomo allegedly told her that she seemed aggressive as he put his hands on her cheeks. She recalled this. Cuomo then asked if he could kiss her, Ruch said, and she distanced herself as he came closer, according to her. She said that she was confused and embarrassed, and she turned her head away and didn't have words in that moment. Now, here's the thing. These allegations, just like with the other 2 allegations of the other 2 women, have not been verified, and Ms. Ruch has not responded to any calls from any other news agencies to address these charges. But this has not been confirmed. But this right now, this is the 3rd incident, of course, amid 2 other incidences. And remember, Governor Cuomo was already in the doghouse concerning it being confirmed that he had concealed the numbers of people who had died at retirement homes amid COVID. But this actually, right now, this latest accusation has actually added to calls demanding that the governor resign. But this is the thing. Most of the calls, here's something to think about. Most of the calls are coming from other Democrats. Or I should say many of the calls are coming from other Democrats, but most of the calls that are being reported in the news, by media outlets, are coming from Democrats, including Representative Congresswoman Kathleen Rice. She's actually the first Democratic House member, U.S. House member, to demand that the government step down. She's saying that the time has come. And there are others who have referred to Governor Cuomo as being a bully. They've accused him as being negative. And joining this attack also have been, is a group of Democratic lawmakers, including state senators Alejandro Bayagi, Gustavo Rivera, Assemblywoman Jessica Gonzalez Rojas. All of them are demanding that he leave office amid these mounting allegations. Bayagi reported, State Senator Bayagi actually tweeted to him, referred to the governor as a monster, saying, "You are a monster and it's time for you to go now." For those of you who may not be aware, Governor Chris Cuomo, the anchor on CNN, is actually the brother of Governor Cuomo, and he said today that he wouldn't report on this subject. He felt a little biased as his brother, but he said he's not going to cover this story. And of course, several times during COVID in particular, he's actually interviewed his brother on his show. But among another group of people, another group of progressives that are demanding that the governor step down, is New York Working Families Party. This is a progressive organization that over the years has clashed with the governor. And keep in mind, across the state, there have been many, oftentimes when it comes to Democrats, we think that it's just Republicans that might be coming at them, but actually you have within the party, you have some progressives and leftists that have a problem with many Democratic policies. New York State is no different. This organization actually represents many progressives that have clashed with Governor Cuomo over his policies, and actually one in particular, we have African-American Assemblyman Charles Barron, who's actually clashed with Governor Cuomo over the years. So let's see. This is what the Working Families Party has said. Quote, it says that Andrew Cuomo's reign of fear, harassment, and intimidation cannot continue. This according to the state director of New York Working Families Party, Suchi Namayeke. We are calling on Governor Cuomo to resign immediately because he is unfit to serve the people of New York. And right now, there's an independent investigation that is taking place by the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, I believe. Right now, today she actually just accepted terms. There was kind of like a conflict about how this was going to be investigated. Governor Cuomo was telling the Attorney General that he wanted to have a former federal judge step in and lead the probe, and the state Attorney General said, "No, I'm good." She said, "We're going to do it this way." So what she did was, right now, she hired an independent law firm to come in, and this independent law firm is going to investigate, but also they'll have the powers of subpoena. So it looks like, Governor Cuomo, you have a lot of folks who like him, but you have a lot of folks who don't like him. So if he's innocent of these charges, we hope he gets through this. So let's discuss right now. Let's go into COVID news. We'll go into COVID rules right now. Dr. Anthony Fauci. Okay, family, Dr. Anthony, just to let you know, we're going to in a few seconds. Right now, we're going to ask you if there's anyone within the chatting section, please come on in with your questions and your comments. We definitely would love to hear from you. If you want to dialogue, if you want to build, if you have something you want to say concerning the subject matter we're covering, please let us know. And we'll be definitely glad to hear from you. I'll put my headphones on so I'll be able to hear from you. Therefore, we'll dialogue. But definitely, if you have Zoom, please sign into our Zoom. And we'll be definitely, we're looking forward to speaking with you. The link is in the description. And don't hesitate to come in. Today, Dr. Anthony Fauci, who has been the point man for the whole COVID crisis, has stated that he thinks that it may be too mature to pull back on COVID protections. He said this on Meet the Press over the weekend. He said this on Sunday. I believe we have some video footage of it. Yeah, we're going to pull it up right now.
Joining me now is Dr. Anthony Fauci. It's, of course, the director of the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Dr. Fauci, welcome back to Meet the Press. I want to start with the message that you and Dr. Walensky were sending on Friday. Because I want to put up, we had quite a few states started lifting some restrictions just in the last week. We have a graphic showing about a dozen states. Some, like North Carolina, allowed more fans in the stands. We had more indoor bars being opened and things like this. And you and Dr. Walensky were like, not yet. Why not yet? Why is this week not the week yet to ease restrictions?
Chuck, because we've been in this situation before. When you start to see a decline in number of cases, if you prematurely lift the restrictions, we have a few examples of the rebound back. Our baseline of daily infections now, even though it's way down from where it was 300,000+ per day, is down to around 70,000. That baseline's too high, Chuck. Once you start pulling back, the thing you don't want is to have a plateauing at a level that's so high that inevitably things are going to go back up. And that's the reason why we understand the need and the desire, understandably, to want to just pull back because things are going in the right direction. But you've got to get that baseline down lower than it is now, particularly in light of the fact that we have some worrisome variants that are in places like California and New York and others that we're keeping our eye on. So it's really too premature right now to be pulling back too much.
Let's talk about the big news overnight, the approval of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The good news, it's a single shot. But here's where I think some people will have questions. The efficacy rate, and this is where you're going to have to help explain why people should feel just as comfortable with a Johnson & Johnson vaccine as they do a Moderna or Pfizer vaccine, whose efficacy rates on the virus are higher than the Johnson & Johnson. What say you, Dr. Fauci?
Well, Chuck, first of all, you now have 3 highly efficacious vaccines, for sure. There's no doubt about that. And particularly the recent results from J&J, if you look at the efficacy against severe disease, greater than 85%, and there have been no hospitalizations or deaths in multiple countries, even in countries that have the variant. So be careful when you try to parse this percent versus that. The only way you know one versus the other if you compare them head to head. And they were not compared head to head. They were compared under different circumstances. All 3 of them are really quite good, and people should take the one that's most available to them. If you go to a place and you have J&J and that's the one that's available now, I would take it. I personally would do the same thing. I think people need to get vaccinated as quickly and as expeditiously as possible. And if I would go to a place where they had J&J, I would have no hesitancy whatsoever to take it.
How do you plan to distribute these vaccines?
Wow, yes. And of course, for those of you, looks like Dr. Fauci is, he's saying pulling back the restrictions on COVID is a no-no. And of course, he would know, many would argue he would know, as I said right before this video, right before this clip, Dr. Fauci has been the point man, the quarterback, if you would, regarding COVID. And he actually clashed a few times, talking about last year with then President Trump, to the point that you actually had a lot of people who believe that the COVID crisis is hype or a conspiracy, if you would. We don't like to use the term conspiracy theories too much as a derogatory term, but they felt that Dr. Fauci was actually a part of the conspiracy. That was the argument. People who believe in the deep state, they were saying that Fauci was a part of the deep state. But if you notice last year, him and Trump, they clashed a few times, quite a few times last year. Especially during this time when we were just figuring out what we were dealing with, or trying to figure out what we were dealing with. This COVID thing, as you notice, it's like split down the middle. There are some people, it's like some people believe that it's a legitimate call, it's a legitimate crisis. There are other people that think that it's a bunch of hype, but there's still people getting sick, there's still people dying. I'm quite sure I'm not the only one who has had relatives that have actually, friends and relatives who have been hit by this, including recently, celebrities have been hit by it, including David Chappelle. He just got over it. And a few minutes ago, I just saw that a classmate of mine, he and his lady, they're both dealing with it. So for those of you that say that it's a conspiracy and that this is a hoax, you have people that are suffering. A close friend of mine who was a councilman out of New Jersey, he's been dealing with it. He was diagnosed with it 2 weeks ago, and he's just now getting over it. And a relative of mine had lost his voice for say a week. And then another close friend of mine, he definitely had to be quarantined, but he told me what it felt like. He said, "Brother, I'm a professional, used to be a professional boxer." He said it felt like I went through a few rounds. That's how he described it. The toll it had on his body. He said it literally felt like he had just finished a title bout. So we're definitely dealing with something. Of course, this vaccine, that we have several vaccines that have been rolling out, at least 3, as he mentioned, Johnson & Johnson. There are many people who are very apprehensive about the vaccine, including black people. And they've actually been saying that since last year. The concern that so many African Americans are apprehensive. And of course, we know what that's about. We know about the Tuskegee experiment, and we know about other things. African Americans quite naturally are going to be paranoid. As someone once said, it isn't that African Americans don't trust science. African Americans don't trust scientists. As you can see, there's a big difference. But we have to ask ourselves the question, as people have asked me, if you notice, as the vaccine was being prepared, and especially when it was first released several months ago, African Americans were the target audience. And of course, they were using, to this day, weeks later, they're still using African American celebrities to promote African American figureheads to promote it. The latest one was Reverend Al Sharpton. He was seen 2 days ago or on Saturday getting an injection. He made sure that you can see where he got injected. Many prominent African American figures have been used as the poster childs for this vaccine. And so, of course, you have to see what that's about. All right, so we're going to move on now. We're going to get on to this other story concerning President Joe Biden, who has been aggressively attempting to reverse former President Trump's immigration policy. Now, this right here comes from Axios.com. Okay. There was supposed to be a briefing this afternoon, Tuesday afternoon, in which the president was going to mention the need for 20,000 beds to shelter an expected crush of child migrants coming across the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, of course, some may say, why does it matter? Well, simply this rapid influx of unaccompanied children is becoming the administration's first new crisis, aside from COVID. There was a presentation created by the Domestic Policy Council that spelled out the dimensions with nearly 40 slides full of charts and details, showing you, what's what, how severe this crisis is, how severe the influx of these migrants coming across the borders. On Monday, the Homeland Security Advisor, Alejandro Mayorkas, he said at the White House that the current situation is not a crisis. Today, the president was actually, he was scheduled to be told the number of migrant children was on pace to exceed the all-time record by at least 45%. And so the administration is worried because they don't think that they have enough bed. So right now what is taking place is that Biden's administration is facing growing numbers. This is according to the Department of Health and Human Services that actually oversees the network of child migrant shelters and is planning to change its coronavirus protocols to make room for an additional 2,000 children and teens, according to a source with direct knowledge of the presentation and a second congressional source as well. Now, even with these new shelters and loosened COVID-19 restrictions, the administration projects it will fall short of its needs by a couple of thousand. This thing is really a mess. You have this, you have the migrant crisis along with the COVID crisis because, this right here, because you don't know how many of them coming across the border have COVID. And so there's a concern. Many critics are jumping on the president's case. Here we go.
Allowing them to cross the border in phases. Overall migrant traffic is up as the administration relaxes President Trump's hard line. Today, Secretary Mayorkas was pressed repeatedly to say whether the situation was a crisis.
I think there is a challenge at the border that we are managing, and we have our resources dedicated to managing it.
Today, President Biden was expected to field two proposals from Mexico's leader in that expanded bilateral meeting happening virtually. First, a loan of vaccines, and second, a labor program that would provide temporary migrant visas for up to 800,000 Americans. Today, Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Mr. Biden would prioritize vaccinating Americans first, and then Congress would have to sign off on any visa program.
Well,
a joint declaration released this evening by the two countries pledged simple cooperation.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.
Well, this is, as we said, this is a real mess. It's a real mess right now. But Trump, since he's in office, since he's been in office, he said that one of his main objectives would be to reverse Trump's policies regarding so-called illegal immigrants. So all we can do is hope for the best. We want to take you to another, I will say, a lighter story, a humorous story. Not necessarily humorous, but it certainly is interesting. This takes place in Great Britain. We got this story from World Hip Hop. World Star, from World Star. We're going to pull up the video in a few seconds, folks. And we thank you very much for joining us. Please, if you have anything that you want to say, if you want to call in, the Zoom link is in the description. We're looking very forward to hearing from you. I'm Doshon Farad, and you're watching live stream. We love being with you always. We love broadcasting with you always. But this is like our launch show, our maiden voyage show. So we're going to pull up the video from this very interesting, I will say that as a funny story.
Which one is it?
It's it says, well, damn, right there. This British teen outruns Court Hart. You're going to see him. He's about to come through. He's about to come sprinting through. Watch, watch. A British teen outrunning. A British teen outrun. First one, the one that actually ran, he actually had got 6 months added on to his sentence. But his boy, for aiding and abetting, had got just 3 months. He got off lucky. I guess British laws might be a little different than American laws. Now that right there was funny. This right here, my goodness, you can never a dull moment in this world that we live in. Okay, folks, we're going to take you to another story here. Oh, yes, here's an interesting find. Okay, the archaeologist story, World Star as well. Yes, this is going to take us to Africa, this next story. Okay, well, this one right here, someone had, just to let you know, someone has sent it to me, but it's still relevant. This is from September, but this dig is actually still taking place. Okay, a total of 27 sarcophagi buried more than 2,500 years ago in Egypt.
Hold on a second.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Yes, have been unearthed by archaeologists in, like I said, in ancient Egypt. They were found inside of a newly discovered well at a sacred site in Saqqara, south of the capital, which is another sacred city in Egyptian religion. 13 coffins were discovered earlier this month, but a further 14 have followed. Now, this story, when someone sent this to me, this story was of particular interest to me because I've had the honor of interviewing Egyptologist Dr. Anthony Browder on this subject. He's out of Washington, D.C. He's been writing for 40 years on what's referred to as Nile Valley civilization, and he himself has currently led archaeological digs. You know, African-American scholar from out of Howard University. He's written several books, including Nile Valley Civilization, Egypt on the Potomac, the Browder File, so many things. But he's actually participated in many of these digs. And unfortunately, for the most part, you'll find non-blacks taking part in these archaeological digs. Very rarely will they show black archaeologists or black historians or black people, period, taking part in these digs. But of course, it was very controversial because they keep desecrating sacred African spots. This is still taking place. Even though this story is from September, this is actually, this particular dig, this organization that's doing it, this team of archaeologists that are from Europe, are actually still taking part in this very historic dig. And of course, as you know, ancient Egypt, or some would say ancient Kemet, one of the earlier names, has captivated historians, especially European and Asian historians, for years. That's why you have a science or a study called Egyptology, the study of Egypt. But Egypt, for years, has captivated historians and scholars and writers. For actually, not for years, for centuries, if you would. And of course, you know, I've had the honor of speaking with black scholars, besides Dr. Anthony Browder, who have led tours over there. You know, Dr. Yusuf Binyakinen, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Professor James Small, Dr. Asaph G. Hilliard, Maulana Karenga, so many that I can name, who, Dr. Akil Kafani, Dr. Greg Carr, who have actually been over there. You know, what else will they find, or what else will they try to find? So tell me, I take it, do we have any calls in?
No calls yet.
No calls yet. Well, we can still go into the news because, you know, news is always taking place. Okay, well, family, listen up. We thank you very much for joining us on our maiden journey. This here is News Siren. We are part of the Extraction Attraction channel on YouTube. Please subscribe to us. I'm Doshon Farad. You know, I'll be coming to you weekly and possibly more.
Are you checking out the comments?
No, I'm sorry. The comments I'm not in I'm not. I didn't see any comment. Remember we said any calls? No
You
one.
didn't look at the comments section.
Okay, right.
So pull up the video and look at the comment section.
Oh, you talking about for this one here?
For YouTube, yeah.
Oh, for the youth for this. Oh, for our YouTube. 1 second, right there. Oh, hold on, Raz. 1 second. I'm sorry, folks. By mistake, I didn't receive the link here. Let me go to our channel. Here we go. Oh, we do have comments. Wow. Midnight Green, thank you very much for joining us. Let's see who we have here. That was my mistake for not looking at the comments, folks, because I didn't pull up the video. My mistake. Hello from the Bay Area. So great to have this media. We thank you very much, Barbara. We really do. Thank you, Miss Barbara Ebron. ADOS reparations, RIP, Brother Jordan, deepest condolences to the family. Yes, ma'am. We appreciate it. Thank you, Miss Ebron. Dead on site. Fauci can't come to 209, but whoa, wow. Babe Racks, that's a little extreme. I'm gonna leave that alone. Midnight Green, good evening. DJ Craig X, I know, Brother Craig, this is very real. Mossily Monster says, seems the news here is convergent to mainstream propaganda. I'm done. Well, you have a right to your opinion. John D, hello, Extraction Attraction. Is there any chance you could bring back Maji? She did all the homeless videos. Oh, no, John D, Maji is still with us. You said she never left us. We speak with Maji on a daily basis. We were just on another assignment this past weekend in Harlem, in New York City. No, Maji hasn't gone anywhere. Maji is very much with us.
All right, don't feed the trolls.
Okay.
Right, let's wrap it up, man.
Okay, folks. Biggie Smooth, thank you very much. Barbara, thank you again. Rob, MM, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm Doshon Farad. Thank you for tuning in to News Siren. See you next time.